And welcome to the Campus-Wide Leadership Series. I'm Robert Klein. I'm the Associate Dean for Professional Development and Faculty Affairs. And we're going to have a little different approach today in that Marty, who usually is hidden from all of you, and I just went online to see what the job of an executive producer, a producer, and a director were, because she does all those things for this series and has for 6 years. 6 years. So the executive producer hires the producer, develops and maintains various key relationships throughout the project, finds the right people, and then we get down to the director, manages the money, manages the time, and then the producer discovers the frame, gathers the right crew, and captures the narrative. She does all of that, and today she's in charge, so I'm going to turn over the microphone to Marty McLaughlin.
Actually, he forgot to mention the committee.
Yes. We want to give you the spotlight today.
All right. Okay, bear with me. I will say that the Campus-Wide Leadership Series is one of the bright spots of my job. There are a lot of them, but this is really one of the ones that I truly enjoy because I get to meet so many people, looking for speakers, talking with speakers, and some of the funny things that they say along the way, like the night before the Bill Self presentation, he called me on my cell and said, "Now, what hospital is this?" A year ago, we had David Nastor here, and he talked about laughter in healthcare, or healthcare needs to laugh. And that's kind of what started the evolution of some of our other speakers on laughter in the healthcare industry, as well as how I got to meet these nice folks down at our guest table today. Nasser invited me to participate in a film that he was producing, which is going to air in Seattle this week. And while there, Chris and Suzie were also being interviewed, so I stuck around and listened to them talk and thought, as I do with everybody now, I think we need them. We need them in our series. So I have dogged them for a year and a half, right? I think that I'm going to let them tell their story, but we're going to do this, like Dr. Klein said, a little bit differently. We're going to do it more as an interview conversation. None of the four of us are used to talking in front of people anymore. I mean, I used to do it, but they're not used to it. So we're going to make this a little bit more informal. So if along the way, I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask them to tell the story and perhaps to help us learn the lessons of the day. If you have questions on whatever we're discussing at the time, throw your hand up. They'll recognize you because you're going to see my back through this. And either that or just hold your questions till the end. But I think that it really is interesting to me how leadership is defined different ways for different people. For me, and one of the reasons that I was so interested in bringing them here, is that leadership isn't just holding a CEO position in a company in Kansas City or somewhere across the nation, or a top-level position. It's the leadership characteristics or qualities that all of us have deep inside of us. Some of us never reach in and tap them. Some of us do. But from the lessons or the stories of others, we can recognize perhaps qualities in ourselves, and that's how I look at leadership and how I try to find the speakers for you. And I think that when you look at a family getting up on a normal day, doing their normal thing, and having something impact that family so strongly or so severely, their life changes, how you handle those obstacles or those life-changing experiences can truly make you a leader. And I am honored to introduce the panel of who I think are heroes as well as leaders. Chris Joyner, the one closest to me, his wife Suzie, and Ray. And Ray was instrumental in the group that helped pull Chris from the building. We have some pictures of the fire, but I think what we're going to do is go ahead and get started and go with the questions. Okay, to start with, what I want to do is have each of you very briefly kind of explain what your normal day was like prior to October 18th, 2009. so that we can all kind of relate to how normal they are, like we are.
At work?
Any way you want to describe it, at home, at work, or whatever.
I guess the normal day would have been going to work. You get there, you check out all your equipment. Whoever's there before you can go ahead on home. So you get there early to relieve them. It's kind of just a courtesy. We always get there early. Look at all your stuff and make sure everything's in working order. And go in, drink a little coffee, and you hang out for about an hour, and then you start cleaning your equipment, whatever needs from maybe the shift before, if they use stuff, got it dirty. Then clean the station, sweeping, mopping, cleaning the kitchen, clean the bathrooms, do all that every day. And someone will go to the store and get your food for the day. That didn't happen to be us that day, so I was back on the treadmill, kind of my normal morning.
And what's your role in the firehouse?
I am in charge of one pumper company, one fire truck.
Okay. And where's the firehouse located?
It's 34th and Paseo, 3401 Paseo. That's where we're assigned.
And Ray, you worked there at the time, right?
I worked at 3211 Indiana at Station 18.
At that time?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we run together our calls.
Okay.
A lot of them.
All right. Suzie, your normal day.
Well, do we really have normal days?
I don't.
I think we do, but I mean, we're very. We've got a daughter who's grown, and then we do have a teenage son at home. He's 16 years old, a sophomore in high school, very involved in athletics. I do work part time, and we revolve a lot around our son. And I don't know if people have kids or nephews or nieces or something, but a lot goes into sports and academics and different things. So we're kind of very centered on him. And then just kind of, I think being married to a fireman, you have to be very independent because they're basically gone a third of the time. And some people don't think about that, but they work every third day. So they're on for 24 hours and then they're off for 48 hours. So basically a third of the time he's gone. So a third of the time I'm the head of the household. and just kind of, and it's just kind of different. But, we do have to kind of be independent. And but just,
okay.
Very child,
right.
I'd say very family-centered and, very faith-centered. And
Yeah. You?
Well, my normal day is much like Chris's. Come in, check the rig, discuss things with the shift before. We do a lot of debriefing. It's just a natural thing if they had work. And in our area, probably the busiest area in the metropolitan. I mean, we run more calls than anybody. I mean, from Grandview to Liberty.
Okay.
It's a high risk area, so we get a lot of work. So it's a little different. I just recently went out to Pumper 45 because I'm going to retire here in about a month. So I'm blessed, I'm kind of out in God's country now, but down there where Chris is still working and where I used to work, a little different program. It's a whole different culture.
Okay.
The regard for life, the respect for authority, the things that kids have to go through. We don't just run fires. We run lots of different calls. You name it. I mean, if you got a busted pipe, they'll call us. I don't care what it is. But so we see it's somewhat depressing, or can be, if you don't have the right attitude going in. So there's a lot more to it than just what a lot of people see what we do. It's kind of hard to relate that, but you get to know people in the community. Kids that are homeless going to Central High School, they're regulars at the station. We help them with their homework or stuff like that. I mean, it goes that far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. Okay, let's move on to October 18th. So, Chris, tell us what you remember.
About the morning?
Mm-hmm. About the morning.
I can remember that we had gone through the normal routine I just talked about and checked everything out on the pumper. You check out your personal gear and make sure everything's there. Clean the station, and then I had been on the treadmill, and I can't remember if I had gotten off or if I was done or what I was doing cleaning up after that. when the call came in for a fire just down the road. Want me to go on through that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we went ahead and went to the fire, and we were the first ones there. We just had a light amount of smoke. It really wasn't a whole lot. It's something you see all the time, really. It looked normal. And so we went in on a hose, and we were kind of...
That's not a light amount of smoke.
No, I know.
That's kind
That
of
conditions
depressing.
did change a little.
Later on.
But anyway,
That was after Chris put it out.
yeah, there you go. Had gas in the fire hose. But we went in, didn't see anything too much. There was nothing on the first floor where we went in. Just a little bit amount of smoke, no heat. So I went upstairs with a guy with a thermal camera, and at the time it was just me and him up there. And he goes, I don't see anything, and the smoke just got a lot worse, got a lot more smoke. It started to get hot. And you never really like to see that because you know something bad's about to happen, but we still didn't see any fire. And I had a hose, with water in it. And so I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen here. I started looking around to see where it's going to come out of a void space or something. And I was actually my radio got knocked onto the wrong channel. And he went back downstairs, and they had said to go ahead and come out because there were conditions going on that I didn't see from my position. And but I knew things were getting bad, and I was getting ready to come out anyway. Anyway, I turned to come out, and I had been the only one left on the second floor, and my bottle got caught. I missed the doorway. There was an exposed wall, a wall with exposed studs, and I mistook the gap in between the studs for the doorway at first. And
I'm sorry, I'm going to interject something. The smoke is really, really thick, and they can't see their hand in front of their face. So that's how he missed the doorway.
Fireman's wife.
So anyway, my bottle got wedged in that 16-inch gap in between the studs, and normally you can swim your way through there by your hands up over your head, but there was a little bit of stuff in the way, and I don't know if it was too low. I don't really remember why I couldn't get that done. But anyway, so I was stuck up there with my bottle caught in between the exposed studs. And this whole thing, the time I was stuck was probably no more than about 60 seconds. But that was a long minute.
Yeah.
And anyway, everyone had gone outside, and they immediately saw that I wasn't outside. And so they came back in. And it's funny because through this black smoke where I couldn't have seen this water bottle, I saw a guy probably as far away as the second row and knew who it was like I was looking at his face. And yelled his name, and he came over and jerked me loose. And we tumbled down the stairs, and Ray pitched me out the door, and and there we were.
All right. Okay. Ray, what's your perspective on that?
Well, our station is, I don't know, maybe quarter mile or mile from there. We're 32nd Street to 34th, Paseo to Indiana, which is probably 25 blocks. But this fire was pretty much right between our two stations. They delayed us going. Why they didn't send us, that's a whole nother argument. But we were delayed by maybe 30 seconds. I went and called and said, we're in service. They said, make it. So when we pulled up, 17s, which he's in charge of, and 2 truck were there. We spotted right behind him. Same thing. There wasn't much smoke showing on this front part of the building where that deck is. It looked like maybe a barbecue grill was up, that much smoke coming out. I'm thinking too small, which is 2 hand lines. I'm thinking, well, we'll knock this down. It's no big deal. So as we made our way to the front entrance right here, which is right just to the left of that porch right there, there's another side of this building looks just like that. If you looked at it, there would be 2 balconies and door right there. Well, they had lines stretched up. That's where Chris and those guys were. When I hit the front door, it started to draft, which is where there's so much heat and so much ignition in one area. I don't know if you've ever opened up your barbecue grill after it's been burning and you feel that little bit of, well, that's oxygen getting to it. You know, that's what you need that's one of the things you need for a fire to extend. So probably when they opened, at the same time, we had guys on the roof venting. So as soon as they open it up, here comes all the air through the front door, and that's one of the reasons that it got so hot so quickly. I mean, the conditions changed so fast. I'm 32 years into this and worked there my whole life and been in a lot of situations, but that was the hottest I've ever gotten that quickly. And I thought, holy crap. And I know they're all above me and 2 floors up. So we start trying to go up. We're stretching the line out. They hit the air horns and the signals. It's a universal sign for us to evacuate the structure. They hit the air horns and there's a tone on the radio. He didn't hear it because his got knocked over onto another channel. So it turns into, you've got 20 guys on a stairwell, 15 of us or something. It turns into a rugby game. I mean, it got so hot, we wanted out. I mean, to the point I thought I was, it burned my ears, burned the side of my face. Again, we shot outside, realized Knucklehead wasn't with us, so then it was getting like that. And we went back in that to get that. Yeah. You're welcome. But, I mean, it was one of those deals. Jimmy got to him, which his brother or cousin is
Yes,
sitting
we have a
right
visitor
there.
here that's also a firefighter, right?
That's Jimmy's cousin. Jimmy Baker's his name, and this guy's he's a horse. He grabbed him and threw him down the steps. That's when he hit us, and we all went out the door with him. We got pretty lucky that day. We really did. And when I fell out into the yard with him, myself and Nick Silvio, my firefighter that day, I pulled his face piece off, and I thought he was dead. When I looked at him, he was responsive. I didn't even think he was breathing. His eyes were back. So my reaction was I started hitting him like, you son of a, you ain't dying on me, right? This ain't happening today, This is not happening. So we started getting his clothes off, and, of course, it's kind of graphic, but his hands, it was like mozzarella cheese coming out of his coat. I mean, he was just coming apart, and I'm thinking, Jesus. And then I looked up, and Jimmy's helping. Well, his arms looked the same way. Jimmy didn't even know he had been burnt severely. So then we started getting saline on him and stimulating him a little bit. He jumped around, got on his hands and knees, and he's giving me one hell of a dirty look for punching him in the chest. I'm glad he doesn't remember that. But then we started doing what we call packaging, and we got all the treatments on him. The EMS people were there, and we loaded Chris and Jimmy up and sent them off to the hospital.
And which hospital was that? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Which hospital?
KU.
No. Didn't you?
Well, I went first to Truman.
He went to Truman.
Yeah, so I'll let her explain.
Yeah.
She's got a very good perspective on
All right, let's let her
that
have a
part
turn
right
here
there.
then.
Well, October 18th was a Sunday morning, and Sunday we have a young granddaughter. She's 4 now. She was almost 3 at the time, and she spends every Sunday with us. And we went to church, and I was actually at church, and my phone started ringing. And the service was over. I was standing in the hall talking to a friend, and my phone starts vibrating. And I thought, oh, they can leave a message. And then it stopped for about 5 seconds, and immediately, again, my phone started vibrating again. And again, I thought the same thing. If it's important, they'll leave a message. But I did
fireman's wife.
Yeah. But I did actually look at the number that time and think, well, I don't know who that is, so I stuck it back in my purse. And I always thought, too, if anything ever happened to Chris, we're so much in love and we're so attuned to each other, I'll just know it before I get a phone call. But my phone immediately starts vibrating again, and I thought, this must be important. So I did answer the phone, and it was a social worker at Truman Medical Center. And she said, your husband has been critically injured in a fire, and you need to come right away. And I'm thinking, Truman Medical Center? Why isn't he at KU? They're known for their burn unit. And then I'm thinking, and then I said, well, can I talk to him? And she said, no, he's been intubated. And then I thought, oh, he's dead, and they're keeping him alive. They're keeping him on life support until I get there. So I was devastated, and then I'm trying to tell myself, okay, don't freak out. I don't know what's happened. And I did have, our young granddaughter with us, and then our son who had just turned 15 at the time. And I thought, I'm not going to freak out. And a good friend of mine was right there, and she offered to drive me. And I'm like, no, I'm going to drive myself because I'm going to get there, and it's not going to be as bad as we think. And I'm going to need my car, and you just have to drive me. So, So I'm on my way to Truman Medical Center, and then I do get a phone call from the same social worker, and she said, we're transporting him to KU. And then I was like, yes! That was, it was one of those good, bad phone calls. So I was glad to know, he was coming here because, again, they are known, you guys are known for your burn unit. And I thought, okay, this is good. So, but we did get here, and I actually got here before he did. And there was only, I think, 2 other firemen here at the time. And within probably 30 or 40 minutes, there was, gosh, I don't know how many, maybe 50 or so people here. And they did put us into a special room. And it was quite a while before I got to see Chris. And that was very traumatic. They had told me, okay, he's burned. They said, we're really concerned about his hands. And I thought, well, I'm not going to ask because I'm thinking, are they thinking they're going to have to amputate his hands or this, I just didn't know. And they also said they were greatly concerned about his lungs. His respirator had broken, which neither one of them have said that to you guys yet, but his respirator had broken and his lungs were 85% black. So that was a really...
That's how hard-headed he is. He's still here. Can you believe that?
So... But it was traumatic seeing him for the very first time. I had to wait, gosh, probably 4 or so hours before I could see him.
Still there. None of us got to come over there till after we got that out. So the time frames. It
was a long time, and I think it was probably around 4 hours, but it felt like, just an interminable wait. And when I did see him, he was wrapped from fingertip to armpit, both hands and arms, and then from ankle to groin on both legs. And his arms were in troughs, extended, out tied from the ceiling. And he's got blood. There's blood dripping from the end of his fingertips, where the wrapping starts. And, all kinds of tubes. He's on a ventilator and, I don't know, probably 8 needles sticking in him. And it was not the way I'm used to seeing him. This guy is the kind of guy who gets up in the morning and hits the ground running and goes hard all day and then just, falls in bed at night and then starts all over again the next day. So very active.
So at that point, you're basically dealing with the emotions of a wife looking at her husband, the emotions of a mother wondering what you're going to do with your kids and your grandkid and how you're going to handle that, and just the shock of your own, what's going on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. And, initially I was trying to pin the medical staff down and say, okay, well, first of all, I wasn't going to ask him, what are his chances of survival or his chances of not surviving? I didn't want to know. It's like I didn't want to go there. And I thought, we'll cross that, if we have to come to it. And I was trying to pin him down. Okay, how long do you think he's going to be here? Because I thought, if I just have a timeline that I can follow, I can get through this. And initially they told me, oh, he'll probably be on the ventilator for 4 days, and he'll probably be here about 10 days. And I thought, okay, 4 days, 10 days, I can handle that. Well, the 4 days, the 4 days on the vent turned into 13 days on the vent. And then I think he did go home on the 25th day. So, and that was incredible in itself. But initially, I didn't want to let our son know just kind of how bad it was. We had recently had a very good friend have a brain aneurysm, and after his surgery for his aneurysm, he did have a major stroke and major hemorrhaging, and he was in a vegetative state basically, and so but his appearance was pretty much the same as Chris's appearance. But the doctors did assure me that from the blood gas tests that Chris's brain had not gone without oxygen, very long. So they're like, it's going to be no more damage than it was before the fire. So
We weren't worried about that part of it, really.
Okay, so if I remember right, just to throw a couple of facts in here, were we talking a 30% burn?
They were treating him for being 30% burned. I don't think his burn percentage was quite that high, but due to the gravity of the lung injury.
Okay. All right. I think what's important today is to get with how they coped and the things that they did and some of the experiences along the healing process as well. But I also think that it's important for you all to know how those things affected his speedy recovery. Because I remember from the taping of the movie, you telling the story about going hunting, 4 months after this happened? Is that right?
Actually, a month after I got
A month.
It was 2 months
hunting.
after the fire, a month after he got home from the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some friends we're all avid bow hunters, and they didn't want to see me go without getting out there, so they put me in a heated blind and gave me a crossbow, and actually I got one that day, so I was freezing. Yeah, but I was freezing when it was 60 degrees out too, so for a while.
I think one of the stories, too, I think that's just absolutely remarkable. A month after the description of his hands that Suzie just described, going bow hunting. I don't know if any of you have ever pulled a bow back, but that takes a lot of muscle. That's not easy to do.
Yeah, they gave me a crossbow.
They harvested his whole back.
Oh, okay, a crossbow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For skin grafts. I mean, I'm sure you guys are somewhat familiar with that.
All
But
right.
his whole back, they harvested. So he's out there. I have no idea. I'm not familiar with that.
And you went back to work full-time when?
I went back to work full-time 5 months after I got hurt.
And they told me initially, they said, he's probably never going to be able to go back to work because he's first in with a hose. And they said his skin grafts won't be able to take the heat. So, and they told me, too, his recovery would be about a year. And we were, at the year mark, we were still dealing with a few things. But for him to go back at 5 months was just amazing. And we had found out that people all over the world were praying for him. And we really felt like that was instrumental in his recovery. Just because the things like, the first time they set him up on the side of the bed, they said, okay, we're going to set him up on the side of the bed. And they told him, but don't feel bad if you can't sit here for very long, because most people, once they've been, prone for so long, just can't sit up. They get lightheaded, they get dizzy. So they sit him up, and he sits there, and he sits there, and he sits there. And they're like, wow, okay, well, we didn't expect this. We're going to put you in a chair. So then they get him to a chair, and they're like, oh, my goodness, you're doing so good. You're doing so good. And I'm thinking he's sitting in a chair, but I was excited that the nursing staff was so excited that he was sitting in a chair. And then they're like, well, we just can't believe how good you're doing, so we're going to get a walker. We're going to see if you can walk down to the family room. And the family room was where, it was a really nice space that the burn unit designated us to hang out, just because there were so many firemen and stuff there the whole time that they didn't want us to scare the other people.
They let me wear my MU hat in there, too.
Yeah. If anyone wants me to pinch him or kick him, just tell me and I will. But so he got the walker, and they got the walker, and they started off, and a couple of the nurses were crying, and of course that made me cry, and and it was just amazing. But
that was how long was he in a coma?
They kept him on the vent for 13 days and had him, like in the medicated.
Of course, after that he sits up and takes off.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And they kept telling me, when he turns the corner, you're going to know. And throughout different things, I'm like, is he turning a corner yet? And they're like, no. And then one of them looked at me this day and said, he's turned the corner. So, but it was incredible, because they would ask him to go an inch. And a lot of times when you do face trials, or when you do face difficult circumstances, it's a lot easier if you do take things, small increments at a time, instead of trying to do, a whole lot. But he just, from the whole time with his recovery, they told me he would probably have post-traumatic stress syndrome. They told me he would probably have nightmares. They said, different things he would struggle with mentally. Never. He was depressed when well, first of all, again, as I said, this is a guy who hits the ground running every day. He's very active. He doesn't stay inside much. He doesn't watch TV. He's just always doing things. And I thought, God help us all when he does come off the vent. He's going to be one grumpy son of a gun. But he had about a 2.5 hour time period where he felt sorry. He was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and oh, what am I going to do? He kind of felt bad for himself. Maybe 2.5 hours, and after that, he was just 100, giving 100% effort on everything. Physical therapy would bring like the little bicycle foot pedal thing and set it down in front of him and say, because his right knee, his legs are burned. His legs were burned badly. His right knee very, very badly. And they would tell him, your goal is to do 3 rotations, 4 rotations. And he would go very slow, and he would start powering through these rotations that they wanted him to do. And then he'd wind up doing the darn thing for 5 minutes, and he would get going, and he would just go. And he was like that. And the first time that I left him home alone, once he came home, I came home and he's walking around, and I called it the monster mash, the way he walked anyway, just because, his legs were stiff and he held his arms out, but he was walking actually even a little different from that, and he had a look on his face, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? And he said, I fell down the stairs.
Tore the railing off.
He tore the railing out of the wall. I'm like, well, what were you thinking going up and down the stairs? And he said, I just wanted the exercise. But
you are persistent.
That's the kind of man that we're dealing with here.
Very persistent. But that's when David Nastor was here. He probably talked about laughter and dealing.
Yes. That's.
Well, I can't imagine how he made it. I mean, right there. She was like that through this whole ordeal. We were talking about that earlier. Upbeat. We never had any drama. And trust me, we've had enough incidents on the fire department, especially in my career, where I've been in emergency rooms, buddies have been hurt or burnt or even killed. And this gal here is something else. She's amazing.
She is pretty amazing.
She is.
I mean,
I had an awful lot of support. The burn unit here, they are the most incredible, compassionate people. And I just couldn't believe the way they treated me, from the very first day on. They just, I would try not to cry when I was in Chris's room, just because they've got him, in this drug-induced coma, but, I hear that people are still aware, and this and that. So I'm thinking, what can he feel? What can he sense? What can he understand? So I never wanted to cry in front of him. So I would hold it all in, then I'd come out of his room and just,
The drama began.
Yeah, well, she didn't do it in front of us. So.
And I wouldn't do it in front of the guys either.
I would like to say, just very quickly, that I don't know how many of you are over there, but we do have some of the burn unit folks here. Would you raise your hands?
Yeah, thank you. You guys are awesome.
Tell us some of the things that were related to your coping mechanisms beyond. I mean, you've explained a lot of them, but some of the silly things that let's fall back on the Nastor theory of laughter does help with recovery, and some of the stories that can really tickle your heart, I think.
Yeah, the ringtone on his phone, she changed. What was that? A week into it,
Something.
She switched it to "Burning Ring of Fire" by Johnny Cash. So.
And I did change his handle in my phone to hot stuff.
Yeah.
It was a little more than a weekend. It was after once he got off the vent, and I was getting this sense that, we're going to make it through this. So, but we had people like Ray standing in the hall with the Nastor blaster, which is a fart machine, and.
I would have brought it with me.
And
yeah, that was fun. We got a few people to spin around. They walk by and you. Fireman. It was the fireman's wife. That's it. Oh yeah, we had lots of fun with that.
I actually did have someone from I don't know if she was a nursing manager or who did come to me and say, Suzie, this is a teaching hospital, so you need to control these guys.
Until they like the food, though. We brought good food. We had good cooks on the fire department.
I don't know if anyone heard about the food. I know there's a few people up there who benefited from the food. And firemen love to cook, and they're all great cooks. And we felt like we were kind of receiving special treatment. And just for the firemen wanting to do something for me and then wanting to do something for the wonderful doctors and nurses that were up on the floor, they would fix these huge meals, and they'd bring in like all this food, enough for what, 30
30 or
40 people. So all the nursing staff is gaining weight. I gained 12 pounds. I couldn't eat for 5 days, and then I couldn't stop eating after the first 5 days.
Yeah, so see, it was our fault again. You know?
And, yeah.
Got burnt. We started cooking and made everybody fat. You know, so can't win.
Tell us, are there any, I hate to get beyond the stories, but I do want to try to keep us a little bit on time here. Are there any lessons that you can take away from that experience? Have any of your lives changed as the result of that? And I'm talking more about the way you look at life, or the choices that you make today that you may not have made that kind of choice before October 18th. Let's start with Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it really puts into perspective what's important. There's no little stuff that bothers me anymore.
Good.
I think you know what's important now. All the drama and the stuff. I mean, it didn't really bother me a lot before, but I tell people, don't worry about this little stuff.
That's cool. That's a good one.
It was a reminder for me, our fabric as firemen. We start taking things for granted, I think, every once in a while, like any normal person would. And like I say, we work in one of the busiest areas in the city, and I don't think we really took anything for granted that day, but I was certainly reminded of how quickly everything can just change. Seeing his face, and for a minute on the steps, I didn't think we were going to get out. I'll be quite honest with you. It scared the living hell out of me, and I can't ever think of a time I was ever really in fear of anything on it, because you're surrounded with good guys, you're all working together. But there for a few minutes, I thought, well, you've done it now. You've really done it now, But we got out, and we went back in, got him, and got out, and I just, like Chris said, you can pay close attention to detail, but don't sweat the small stuff. That's kind of how I look at it.
That was a big one for me, too.
Oh, and you still owe me a helmet, too, by the way.
Details? He owes you a helmet?
I lost my helmet trying to get his dumb ass out of there. 4 helmets he burned up. My hook, that's a hook there. I lost my hook, my helmet. Your helmet's your baby. It's your prize, That thing, it saves you from a lot of things.
I'm just looking for the right one.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say big enough.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. I kind of came away with it, as both of them did too. Don't sweat the small things. It really does put things in perspective. Another thing too is earlier that summer, Chris and I had moved, and around that time we had a lot of tension in our lives, and we were bickering and not getting along so well. And we got everything, things were made right between us before this happened, but it did cross my mind, oh my goodness, what if things weren't right between us and something like this happened? I would have not been able to do as well as I did, even with the support of 500 firemen and a wonderful, nursing staff. So that was kind of a big one to me, is keep things right between those people that you care about. And another thing, too, that I would think about is, life goes on. I still needed to pick my son up at football practice. I still needed to go to the grocery store. I still needed to, do this and do that. And as I'm doing those things, I'm looking at the other people around me that I'm seeing, and I'm thinking, they don't know what I'm going through, but I thought, I don't know what they're going through. And a lot of people do have a lot of battles that we're not aware of. And it's really helped me. It's really made me make allowance for a lot of people. If someone's rude to me at the grocery store, if someone cuts me off when they're driving, you know what I mean? And not that I have any, but it just has given me like extra grace, I guess, for other people.
Okay. From each of your different perspectives, a patient, a family member of the patient, a friend, colleague, what can we in the healthcare industry learn from your experience while here?
Well, I think Suzie touched on it earlier. This is a question for you guys. When she said the social worker called from Truman, I just thought that was really wrong. I mean, for her to get the information that way. And I don't know what the protocols are, if this person was out of bounds or out of line. But it's, after we were here, it was amazing, just amazing, the bedside manners on all the doctors and everybody. And really had to put up with us at a point, because we are kind of a rambunctious group, and get a little bit over the line sometimes. But everybody's ability to deal with us amazed me, and to improve on that, and maybe protocols where when tragic things like these happen, or if there's a better way to communicate, like to her, if it was my wife or my kids, or I think I feared that more through my whole career, is her having to just hear about it, because I lost a brother, 2 brothers actually, in car accidents, and to hear about that is more, I think that's more devastating than once you get your feet on the ground and go, okay, I got to deal with this, and no matter what. So that part of it, when people come in, how do you receive them, and how do you communicate with them? Here was great, but Truman, I thought, was, not to throw them under the bus or anything, but that was pretty jacked.
And I'm going to come to Truman's defense, and Ray might not know this, or I guess he probably doesn't know this.
But that really made me mad.
I guess Chris had a moment before they intubated him where he's laying there like this, and then pops up and said, "Call my wife, 555-5555."
But I wouldn't.
And then they intubated him.
I would see, and I wouldn't call his wife. I just not. He was certainly incoherent and disorientated, So to me, I just thought that was a bad move. That's one thing I would work real hard on to improve on, because I know what you went through, and you made a long story real short. Your drive to the hospital and all that was pretty rough. Yeah. Pretty rough on her. Well, I would try to get more information about the patient, having been in that situation, and then have somebody, instead of just a phone call and, hey, pretty generalized his condition. When I found out about both of my brothers, I had real good evidence or real good information. I kind of knew what to prepare for. Went and got my mom, and I'm like, this is not good. This is, prepare for the worst. And it was just told to me in a different way. And the person identified themselves. We have your brother here. This is this happened. This is his condition. Can you get here? Yeah, we're on our way. And that was from Overland Park. We had to go out that way. But it just seemed like it was, I knew once I talked to this ER doctor what I was up against. I pretty much knew what was going on. He was honest with me.
Here.
Right. Well, that's normally our protocol, and that's normally our protocol, but somehow, I don't know how that ball got dropped. That's a whole nother story. I think for her, yeah. Well, since then, we've changed to where, like in that particular incident, one of us is going to go with him. Somebody from the scene. Get in the ambulance, or in that case, there was 2 guys. I've been in a situation where we've had 4 or 5 guys burnt. We need to put a person with each one, and then that, because the person's disoriented. And it's not so much the hospital's fault, but you asked how could we improve. It would take both sides to improve it.
Okay. All right. And with your experience in the hospital, what can you tell that was the good, the bad, or the ugly?
I'd say
the fun, the silly, the whatever.
Best was a positive attitude of all the people in the burn unit.
Okay.
Nobody came in there and looked at me. It's like, whoa. You know what you look like? But, even the people that come to scrub you, which is miserable, had great attitudes.
Good.
It's hard to, think about that as a positive, but because I would think about that as soon as I got out of the scrubbing. Well, 23 hours and 59 minutes till the next one. But yeah,
Offered to do that, but they wouldn't let us.
the firemen offered to help, but I should have let them.
Why they wouldn't, I don't know.
A little too much muscle, maybe.
Yeah, or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, all the nursing staff and the burn people, they were all very positive experience. Just their attitudes.
Good. And Suzie, as a wife, I mean, aside from the story that you just told.
Yeah, as far as the hospital is concerned, incredible. Just, I mean, like I said, great compassion, great caring people. Initially, though, it was kind of funny. This is a little funny story. He came in on a weekend, and I guess, the weekend crew's wild and crazy or something. I don't know how the weekend crews are, but they didn't really set up a lot for us. They put us in the special room, and they said, all you need to do is come out this door, come down this hall, and they kind of gave me free rein in coming to see Chris. Now, of course, I couldn't go in if if they were scrubbing him, cleaning him, something like that. But no one said, and then after a couple of days into it, I walked out of the family room, and I was walking down the hall to go to Chris's room to see him, and a gentleman stopped me, and he said, whoa, hey, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to see my husband. And he said, no, wait, what do you think? You just can't walk down this hall and go in there and see him. And I'm thinking, oh, I've been doing it for 2 days. and he said, no, he said, you're supposed to call us first and ask. He was like, this is an ICU unit. We have rules. And I'm thinking, oh, gosh. And no one had really pointed that out to me before. I guess this kind of loose protocol had been, set. And so then I'm like, well, where am I supposed to call from? And so he comes and he takes me in the room, and he said, from this phone right here. And on the desk, or on the little counter, there was no phone. And then he was like, oh, well, let me go get the phone. So he went and he got the phone. And then he plugs the phone in, and he taped a number on there, and he said, you just dial this, it was a 4-digit number. And our door's propped open to the hallway, and the nurse's station is just from me to this lady right here with the camera. And so I dial the code, and the nurse's desk, which is right there, starts ringing, and I'm like, can I see my husband now? And I just thought, this guy, he's just a black and white guy, and it was good for there to be pointed out, there are rules. And not that we were breaking all kinds of rules, but I guess just, this kind of loose protocol had been set up for us. And this guy was black and white, and it was really funny because like a day or two later, he was in Chris's room doing something, and Chris got, 100 or more cards, and they're taped all over the wall, and some of the cards, or he probably got actually more than that, but we only taped about 100 up. But some of the cards were from these Girl Scouts, and they were these little bright, purple, orange, red, yellow, and they have these like 3D flowers on them and all this stuff. And this one guy went by, and he like kind of bumped against the wall.
The same guy?
Same guy. Yeah, same guy. He bumps against the wall, and this flower card gets stuck to his rear end. And so we didn't tell him. We just let him go around with a flower card on his butt.
Fireman's wife again. How did we not meet this guy? Golly, that would have been fun. That would have been a lot of fun.
But no,
He's not here today, is he?
I looked before I told this story. I know, and I didn't see him, so.
Oh, you already.
But you know who you are if you're, yeah.
You already looked around. It'd be great if he popped up.
How can you not heal with this kind of laughter around these guys? Does anybody else have any questions that you'd like to ask them? And as Chris pointed out earlier today, they've spoken with children in the audience, lots of children before and they're asked lots of questions that are, unexpected or whatever. Whatever questions you might have for them related to the fire. Suzie, if you want to advance through the rest of the slides too.
And I don't know if you guys want to say anything about any of the slides or no.
The building's on fire.
Didn't really look like that when we got there.
We got it now. Look at that. Yeah.
I had a captain tell me once it's supposed to get better after you get there.
Yeah, it's supposed to. But yeah, Chris had already been transported at this point. And like I said, he was here, so we had to stay and babysit this thing until it caved in.
And from the time that it went from light smoke that we saw when we got there to the end-to-end fire, that happened in probably about 2 or 3 seconds.
Well, we have a radio transcript, and we do after-action reviews. And his initial on scene, that's when the first arriving company, Pumper 17, we got blah blah blah, 2-story involved, whatever. From that moment till when we brought Chris out was 7 minutes and 32 seconds. That's how quickly. And then when we came out the door and we were there, this looked, I turned around and looked, and I thought, when we get these calls, he's housed with 3 companies, 17s, 31s, and 2 truck, and I'm with 18s and 5 truck. Well, they dispatch all this, and I'm assuming 31s ran this call with them. Well, they were out of position. I didn't know that. So when I turned around, I thought they were still in there. So, when I saw Tim Bowman, who's a captain on 31s, I wanted to choke the hell out of him. I said, where were you at? Well, we came from 19s. I'm like, God bless, tell me this, But yeah, that involvement is about 10 minutes, roughly. So it was jammed full of accelerants, a vacant building. Obviously somebody that had other things on their mind, but people say you're crazy. Why do you go into vacant buildings? Well, people squat in these. We have a lot of homeless folks in our part of the city, and they live in there, so that's why we go in.
And we had seen people in this particular building not too long before this fire.
Then you got people across the street, here they're bystanders going, there's my helmet right there.
Piece of church.
They're like, yeah, so-and-so's in there, so we go in. We have to search. We're not going to just stand there and not search. So I know that's a question in everybody's mind. Well, are you crazy? Why do you go into a vacant building?
They are crazy.
But yeah, we are crazy. Yeah. It's like I've got some really good friends in New York. Great friends that are firefighters that responded to 9/11. And I was just up there in March, and my daughter lives in Brooklyn, and so we're visiting with these guys, and we started talking about that. And he goes, you know what's crazy? Joe Huber, he's a lieutenant in the Bronx. He said, if that whole thing happened today, 9/11, go right back. I said, yeah, sure would.
And that's one thing that I really took for granted with these guys. Chris is a 21-year captain, and I never thought anything would happen to him. He's in great physical shape. 2 weeks before this fire happened, or 3 weeks, he rode his bike in the MS-150. He's got a great crew. They all know what they're doing. When they went up to this building, they all said, it's a no-brainer. It's nothing, no-brainer. And I never, I never thought anything would happen to him just because he's in great shape. He's got a great crew. The station that he's at one point was the 7th busiest company in the United States. And so they've got a lot going on. And these guys they've got something in their brain that there's something missing that alerts them to danger and to fear, seriously. And I'm really glad because, again, conditions got so bad that they blew the horns for them to all come out. And then when they realized Chris wasn't there, they all ran back in. And these guys are going to do it, for you or you, or you. And it's awesome. They're just amazing men.
Thank you.
This is why they're our heroes, aren't they? Question.
Yeah, they're pretty sure they know what it was and who it was. They just couldn't prove it. So they said it wasn't. The bomb and arson guy said it wasn't mice and match, or gas and matches.
Nice save.
Like normally when they burn a house down, they use gas and they light it, but this was something different.
Yeah, we had it on our coats.
Yeah, there was
a tremendous amount of accelerant.
There was a weird smell left on everybody that was there that we never have.
Dr. Corntager actually said he could smell the accelerant on Chris when they brought him in.
And sometimes they'll take balloons up in the cock lofts and stuff, so when we open it, it drops and the oxygen hits and it blows. And I mean, they're pretty deviant people, but they're there, and we got to be smarter about what we do too. We learned a lot from this fire. It turned out to be not such an expensive lesson. I mean, for all of us, I mean, Chris and Suzie had to endure a tremendous amount. I mean, she doesn't tell you about after he got home and scrubbing him, and how many times a day did you have to? I mean, that's the part of her I'm just with both of them, and their attitudes have been this way. They haven't changed. So I know you've probably had your moments, but
It was actually a very interesting time when he came home. They were going to send him to rehab for a couple of weeks here in the hospital. And then they decided, due to his wound care that was needed, they were going to go ahead and keep him on the burn unit. And at that time, some of the nurses said, oh, it's a good thing you don't have to go to rehab. It's like a dungeon down there. And sorry if you're in rehab. But then they told him, well, you're going to need to go to rehab. And he said, no, I'm not going to rehab. I'm going home. And so we did have a home health nurse come every day. We had an occupational therapist come every day. And physical therapy came a few days a week. But we would get up in the morning, and I would have the responsibility of taking his dressings off and then cleaning him. And then we'd have it timed for the home health nurse to get there to redress him. And that whole process took 3.5 hours. And it just was but the neat thing about that is he's a really independent guy, and he, is kind of, but he had to be totally dependent on us, and just the intimacy that developed between us.
How you say hard-headed politely?
I don't know.
Because
he is very hard-headed, but just the intimacy that developed between us was just incredible. The care, the tenderness and care that I had to.
You don't have any nursing training, right?
I do
Your
not.
background is not in nursing.
No.
So I'm so in admiration of her as well, because I don't like Band-Aids. So digging deep inside, that's something, of how you have to deal with something like this. Or
my fear
whatever.
the first time I saw him was that I would pass out, when I saw him without his dressings on, but I didn't. You just have to, you do what you have to do.
Yeah. Well, we have about 2 minutes left, and does anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that you learned some lessons during that time.
we had some communication problems. Like when Chris went over, his radio got bumped over. And we're working on that. We're improving on that to where we don't jam that radio. Because when we run a fire, it's dispatched over a general airwave. And then if it's a working incident, or even if it's not, they dispatch us to a TAC channel, which gives us that isolated channel. So when he got bumped over, we're working with communications to try and make it better. Once they realized he was on the channel Mayday, and if we would have heard that, we would have even gone in sooner. But that's one of the things that we've improved on greatly. And then, our equipment, if it wasn't for the wonderful equipment that you all pay for, he wouldn't be here. It all held up. That's one of the reasons he's here.
Yeah, the equipment held up really good. We had a chip in our air pack, and the people that make that chip they sent the chip to them. And they said nobody had ever survived the rating that was on the chip in the world that they knew of.
A bunch of us were in that predicament, and it doesn't give you ambient temperature, but it gives them a number to graph off of, and nobody's ever survived the heat that he was in. That's MSA is who makes that product. That's pretty amazing stuff. But they get data from that.
Mike? There you go.
Yeah, I'll let Suzie handle that because I didn't see him as much as she did.
That happened during football season, and he plays high school football. So he was involved with, he would have school, and then after school he would have football practice. And so we just I tried to keep it as normal for him as possible. he was very uncomfortable coming down here and seeing his father the way he was, again, just because he's such a active physical man. But he just kind of, and I also too, I told him from the beginning, I believe Dad's going to be okay. So I didn't tell him, his lungs are 85% black, this and that. So I tried to keep it, and I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I just tried to keep it as normal as possible for him.
Didn't you tell me, too, that Chris's colleagues showed up for games?
Yes, and it was really nice because, Chris, of course, is, he loves high school football, and especially since our son plays. And his crew would get permission to come out of district and come up, and they would come and sit in the stands when Chris couldn't be there. So that was really cool. The fraternity with these guys is just amazing.
Yes, question.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that, and I guess it kind of came back to the guys coming back in. And you think, well, if they're going to come back in and get you, you better work hard. So they didn't do it for nothing.
You can do all that. You still owe me a helmet.
Yeah. All that in a helmet.
Okay, I think maybe one more question and then...
Well, you're kind of in and out of, when you're on the vent, you're kind of in and out of consciousness. There was some times when I knew what was going on around me, and I don't know what kind of drugs they were giving me, but I took that and went all kinds of different places. And when I came out of that, I had no idea what was real and what wasn't for the longest time, and I said all kinds of funny stuff to the nurses and the. I thought I'd been to Antarctica, and I thought I'd been to, all kinds of things that I thought I drove myself to the hospital, and I thought I saw people that weren't there. And yeah, you know a little bit, and you get little glimpses of what's going on around you. And I do remember little glimpses of people being around when I was on the vent, and I still remember that. But I didn't put all the facts together for a long time, and they all kept looking at me like I was crazy, and I thought they were crazy because I thought what I thought was true. And there really is an elevator in the burn unit that goes to Antarctica, and there were wolves, and yeah, thought I could just go up there and get healed.
Well, I hope you agree with me that I think that this is a very inspiring panel and very worth coming in. They were afraid they didn't have, or Chris was afraid he just didn't have much to say to you. You were not wanting to come. He wanted to send these two in his place, and I felt like the whole panel was worth bringing on. So
did real good.
Well done.
thank you. If any of you have more questions and want to stay, you're welcome to do so, but it is about 5 after 1.